have to make arrangements to bring him back here safely. Cleared of all these false charges.
It's not like the old days, where we can do anything we want.
In 1972, The Godfather took over America like a quiet storm. Behind the smoke, the whispers, and Marlon Brando's threatening wisdom was a story so convincing it made real gangsters nod in approval. But was it all fiction, or something closer to a confession? Let's investigate the real-life mob connections buried in the making of The Godfather.
Big star. And let me be even more frank.
The mob that almost killed The Godfather. Did you know that before your favorite film, The Godfather, went big, it almost got whacked when Paramount announced the adaptation of Mario Puzo's novel? The Italian-American Civil Rights League launched a full-blown protest against it. It is no secret that the movement was actually backed by real mob boss Joseph Colombo, who claimed that the film portrays all Italian Americans as gangsters and will have negative effects on his community's already tarnished reputation. This may seem like a valid enough argument, a man trying to protect his people from cultural prejudice. But behind all the headlines, he had another motive: control. The League wasn't just an activist group, it was a shield for Colombo's crime family. And when the producers ignored his calls, he didn't send an email or a manager, he sent his guys. That's why producer Al Ruddy started receiving threats. Studio phones were tapped. Paramount executives found dead rats in their mailboxes. And it got so bad that Ruddy was forced to attend a meeting with the mob. Yes, face-to-face with Colombo himself. I bet you won't be able to guess the man's demands in your wildest imagination, because you think he wanted to threaten the producer or shut down the production altogether, but this activist had a very straightforward and innocent request. He asked Ruddy to remove the word mafia from the script. That's it. How many times did the word occur for such a request? Only once. Ruddy agreed, and the mob literally gave the film their blessings. Maybe Hollywood writers should consider hiring the most feared men in New York as editors instead. Now that you're in on this underworld secret, hit the subscribe button and don't worry before Colombo himself knocks on your doorstep.
Well, when Johnny was first starting out, he was signed to this personal service contract.
How the mob joined the cast. Once the mob was on the same page, instead of stepping aside, they stepped in front of the camera. Many of the background actors in the movie were not trained professionals, but actual mob associates hired to lend authenticity. One of them was Lenny Montana, who played the unforgettable role of the hitman Luca Brasi. So when you thought the actor was putting on an immaculate performance, he was just being himself. But there's one part where he stepped out of his persona, and that's when he stood beside Marlon Brando. Remember the scene where he nervously greets Don Corleone? That's probably the first time the man felt and looked nervous in his entire life, and Brando loved it so much, they kept the take. Montana was a former wrestler and enforcer for the Colombo crime family. He'd spent years collecting debts, not Oscars. An extra on the sets revealed that the crew tried working with real weapons just in case things got too realistic. And the real-life inspiration didn't end there. Al Pacino later admitted he studied mob gestures by secretly observing real wise guys at Italian restaurants in New York. The way they touched their rings, how they didn't speak unless spoken to. It all made its way into Michael Corleone's transformation. Now that's a classic example of method acting, or should I call it mafioso acting. Brando's blessing and the mob's approval. Marlon Brando's performance as Don Vito Corleone is more than legendary, but few people know how he earned real mob respect. Brando met with several Italian-American figures in preparation for the role, which included Salvatore Corsito, who played the infamous undertaker named Bonacera. Corsito introduced him to a few men who were connected to the real thing, and one of them even taught Brando the subtle hand motions and speaking patterns of a true Don. His slow, deliberate, and composed self, until you got on his bad side. When The Godfather premiered in 1972, Real mobsters were among its biggest fans. FBI surveillance tapes captured gangsters quoting Brando's lines word by word. One agent later said, "We didn't need wiretaps anymore." Every capo in New York thought he was Don Corleone. In fact, members of the Gambino and Genovese families started using movie quotes in meetings, creating a bizarre cultural loop where real criminals started copying fictional ones that were inspired by the real ones themselves. The movie basically became a blueprint for mob image management. Some gangsters started dressing better, speaking softer, demanding more respect, and the code of family before business. That gained new meaning for them and for us. And if you want to join our family, subscribe now. Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Hidden Files. Wondering where the FBI was when real mob bosses worked on their Hollywood debut? Rest assured they were keeping an eye on every whisper coming from the sets of The Godfather. In the early 1970s, organized crime in America was at its peak, and Joseph Colombo's Italian-American League had already brought unwanted national attention to the mafia's existence. So, when Paramount Pictures announced it was making a film about a powerful crime family, and Colombo took notice, so did the federal agents. The Bureau's New York office began quietly monitoring individuals associated with the production. While they didn't officially trail the cast and crew, declassified records confirmed that the FBI kept files on certain consultants and extras who had known connections to organized crime. Among them were figures linked to the Colombo and Gambino families, the same circles that controlled much of New York's underworld during that period. Some reports from the time show that agents were particularly interested in the production's financing. Paramount was struggling in the late 1960s, and rumors spread that outside investors might have slipped in through unofficial channels. The FBI looked into these claims, but no illegal transactions were ever proven. Still, the Bureau did maintain an internal memo where they acknowledged businessmen with reputed ties to organized syndicates who showed unusual interest in the project. Then came June 28, 1971, when Joe Colombo was shot at point-blank range during a rally in Manhattan, just months before filming began. Officially, the FBI concluded the hit was ordered by rival mob factions and not related to The Godfather at all. But the coincidence did not go unnoticed. What's more peculiar is that the loud protests against the film instantly evaporated right after Colombo's shooting. Ironically, when The Godfather finally premiered in 1972, it became an unlikely ally for the Bureau. Its realistic portrayal of mafia hierarchy helped everyday Americans and even jurors to understand terms like capo regime, soldier, and consigliere. It won't be a long jump to say that Coppola didn't just make a movie, but he accidentally made the FBI's most effective training film of the decade. How fiction changed the mob forever. With so many unforeseen links between fiction and reality, the lines kept getting more and more blurred. Mobsters began emulating the film's style. According to FBI informants, John Gotti, who was later known as the Teflon Don, modeled most of his public image after Michael Corleone. From the tailored suits and the composure to his calm and sophisticated menace, it came directly from your favorite real-life boss. Meanwhile, Mario Puzo became an accidental godfather himself. Real mobsters respected him and even sent him gifts and photographs of themselves with notes that read, "Nice job, kid. You got most of it right." Coppola, on the other hand, found himself in dangerous admiration. At a New York event, an associate of the Bonanno family reportedly approached him saying, "You made us look good. That's the kind of compliment you don't decline or frame on your wall." Needless to say, the cultural impact was massive. The movie reshaped Italian-American identity, Hollywood filmmaking, and even how people within the organized crime groups felt and thought about themselves. By the late 1970s, wiretaps revealed mob members discussing business just like they did in the movie. That was The Godfather for you. A masterpiece, yes, but also a manual. A film that immortalized crime, it also humanized criminals, and in doing so, rewrote American culture. A film so authentic that real mobsters claimed it as their own. And the FBI took notes. Some say it's fiction, others know it's family. And if you want more truths whispered within this family, consider this your offer to subscribe before it's taken off the table.